Welcome back to our GIC 2021 Solution Series. This is Part 7, where we, as always, take real exam questions and use them as a key to unlock some really big economic ideas.
So, today we're going to tackle some fascinating questions that really get to the heart of how our economies grow and change. We're going to ask things like, how can a single bright idea completely shake up everything? And how do we even measure if a country is doing well? Is it just about the money? All right, let's dive in.
So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the explosive power of innovation. Then we'll take a look at how we actually track progress. And finally, we'll try to untangle how a country keeps score of its international income.
Okay, first up, booms, busts, and bright ideas. We're about to explore that economic roller coaster. You know, the constant ups and downs, and see how one brilliant economist traced it all back to a single powerful force: new ideas.
This all kicks off with question 61 from the GIC paper, which asked a pretty specific question. Who was the economist that talked about primary and secondary waves in their model of business cycles? The answer to this really opens up a whole world of thinking about economic change.
And that economist was Joseph Schumpeter. Now, Schumpeter had a pretty radical idea for his time. He argued that the real source of economic booms and busts doesn't come from somewhere outside the system. Nope, he said it comes from within. And he pointed his finger at one thing in particular: innovation.
And this became his innovation theory of trade cycles. Basically, he's saying that economic development, all the new inventions, the new processes, the new markets, is the real cause of the business cycle. He believed these cycles aren't random at all, but a direct result of these big, disruptive ideas. And he explained how it works using two kinds of waves.
And this is where it gets really cool. You have the primary wave. That's the Big Bang. The groundbreaking innovation, like the invention of the internet, that creates a huge economic boom. But then comes the secondary wave. That's the aftershock. It's that period of adjustment where other businesses have to adapt or, well, fail, which can lead to a downturn before the economy finds its footing again.
So the big takeaway here is that Schumpeter didn't see the economy as this smooth, predictable machine. He saw it as a dynamic, living system that's constantly being reshaped by new ideas. He famously called it creative destruction, where the new thing destroys the old, and that's how progress happens.
So if innovation is what drives progress, how do we actually measure that progress? Let's switch gears from theory to practice and look at how we can track a country's success beyond just raw economic output.
Our next question from the paper gets right at this. It's about the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. This whole framework is designed to make us look beyond simple numbers like GDP and ask tougher questions. Questions about poverty, hunger, health, equality. It gives us a much richer report card on a nation's health.
And this table here is a perfect example. It shows the progress isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. In the 2020 India Index, you had Tamil Nadu leading on poverty reduction, Kerala doing amazing work on hunger, Gujarat on health, and Chhattisgarh on gender equality. It's not one single winner, it's a whole dashboard of successes.
And why does this matter so much? Because it gives us a more complete, a more human picture of what's going on. A rising GDP is great, but if people are still hungry or unhealthy or being treated unfairly, is that really progress? The SDG index helps focus on what actually improves people's lives.
All right, for our final section, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of national accounting. We're going to figure out how a country keeps track of all the money that's flowing across its borders.
So this question from the paper really hones in on a common point of confusion. It asks, are net exports a part of something called net factor income from abroad? I mean, they both involve other countries, right? So let's see if that's actually true.
First, let's just clearly define this key term, net factor income from abroad, or NFIA. The simplest way to think about it is like this. It's the income that a country's citizens and companies earn from other countries minus the income that foreign citizens and companies earn inside that country.
And right here, you see the core difference. Net exports, that's about the flow of stuff, goods and services. It's the value of what we sell to the world minus the value of what we buy. But NFIA, that's about the flow of income. We're talking wages, profits, investment returns. So one is about products, the other is about paychecks and profits.
So the answer to the question is a clear no. They are two totally separate things. And while they both tell us something important about a country's relationship with the world, they are measuring fundamentally different flows.
So let's just quickly wrap up what we've learned today. 1. Economic cycles aren't random.
They're often driven by powerful, disruptive innovations. 2. A country's real success should be measured by the well-being of its people across many different goals. And 3, you've got to understand the details of national accounts to see the full picture of how a country fits into the global economy.
So we've seen how ideas can create waves and how we try to measure what matters. That leaves us with one final thought to ponder. With things like AI changing our world so fast, what do you think the next great disruptive innovation will be? And maybe more importantly, how should we measure its true impact on our lives? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.